Hello everyone, welcome to Danso's online lecture video. Today we are going to look at endosymbiotic theory. Endosymbiotic theory, basically it is a theory that tells us the origin of mitochondria and chloroplast. So when you look at this theory, the name itself explains. Endo, as we know, it means inside, and symbiotic means close association between organisms or between two species. So endosymbiotic theory, a theory that explains the process by which two organisms or two species live together. So basically, immediately we hear this theory, endosymbiotic theory in biology, it reflects our mind to the origin of chloroplast and mitochondria. Chloroplast, it is an organelle found in the plants, and whereas the mitochondria, it is an organelle that is found in both plants and animals. And this is a powerhouse of the cell. It provides the cell with energy. Most of the chemical activities or the biochemical activities that takes place in our cells requires the use of energy, ATP. So that ATP can be produced by this mitochondria and then chloroplast. Now, what are some of the evidences that motivated the scientists to think that mitochondria, an organelle, might have come from a bacteria? Bacteria. How can an organelle derive from a bacteria? Now, basically, there are some compelling theories that tells us, that gives us the idea how mitochondria and chloroplast derive from bacteria, and based on the experimental evidences that the study tells us. So basically, the theory is something that we say based on experimental evidences, not just our common sense. So here, these are the evidences. If you look at mitochondria and chloroplast, they both have their own DNA. And this DNA that they are having, it is resembling the DNA of bacteria. So how can an organelle and an organism have a DNA and these two DNAs resembles each other that far? So that tells us something. And the second one is mitochondria and chloroplast are organelle, but yet still they have their own DNA, and their DNA is double-stranded. If you look at the bacterial DNA, it is also double-stranded. That is another similarity between the bacteria DNA and then the DNA of these organelles. The third one is they all reproduce almost same pattern. If you look at bacteria, they reproduce by the process of binary fusion. Mitochondria and chloroplast, they are organelles. They have their own DNA, but they don't reproduce by using meiosis. They reproduce by mitosis, which is like binary fusion, to divide into two. They replicate by a single cell giving rise to two cells. So basically, these two compelling theories explains and motivated us to believe that these two organelles came from primitive bacteria in the early form of life. So after they become so specialized in their own life form. Let's look at the two main bacterial types that these mitochondria and chloroplast came from. If you look at the origin of mitochondria, we know that they came from a bacteria that they call the alpha Proteobacteria. Now, this alpha Proteobacteria, we believe that in the early form of life, there was, when these bacteria were using oxygen, because in the first phase of the origin of life, there was no oxygen. Then after, oxygen came to accumulate on the earth. So it was very toxic to this organism. So what happened was, this organism later was ingested by another bacteria that can provide, a conducive environment to that bacteria. So while the bacteria enters the second one, it got its ability it got its ability to process and provide its own energy. So the first bacteria was unable, but the second one, when it enters, it transformed this bacteria to be able to produce its own energy, alpha Proteobacteria. So that energy producing organelle converts into mitochondria, the origin of mitochondria. An organelle that can only be transferred from a child or from a parent to a child, but it's only from the mother to a child. And because of this character that mitochondria can only be transferred, it can only be inherited from the mother to the child, it is a very perfect organelle that we can use to tell the evolutionary distance and how closely related people are with their parents. Mitochondria, alpha proteobacterial origin. Let's look at the chloroplast, an organelle which is found only in the plants. But so amazingly, it has its own DNA. Don't forget, it came from bacteria. But what type of bacteria? And this time around, it is the cyanobacterial origin. You know cyanobacteria? These are one of the first organisms that occupies this planet Earth. So chloroplast, cyanobacterial origin, mitochondria, alpha proteobacteria. Hey guys, so next time if you see a bacteria, say hello to those bacteria and be grateful to the bacteria. It is because of those bacteria we are able to live in here. Imagine we without mitochondria. We without mitochondria, we can't go. Plants without chloroplast, they can't go. So prokaryotes are so important to us. They are our ancestors. I hope it is going to help. Please enjoy the video. Any question or doubt, send me your question under the comments. I'm going to get back to you. Cyanobacteria, alpha proteobacteria.